website, right? Connection problem or performance problem. So with that, you can confirm that through connection problem can be confirmed by going to the website. It's easily be confirmed because you can immediately see whether you can access or not the website. Performance-related issue is when the user is having issue connecting to the website in a normal manner, which will be slow. You can use, if the CPU is very high, you can use the CPU monitor to find out if it is indeed pertaining to the SSL, because SSL and HTTPS typically you should see is going up if it's related to it. So really, two issues is going to happen. So one of it is for website access issue is the certificate errors. Now this is something that is disabled by default in Proxy because majority of the website nowadays, in fact, are using a signed certificate. There are few or maybe none, no public websites are in fact using a self-signed certificate nowadays because getting a certificate signed is quite cheap, especially majority of the websites are already HTTPS. So by default, this is disabled in the proxy, which means to say that if you're trying to access sites that are using untrusted certificates, the proxy will block it because it has some security issues if you allow it. Otherwise, you can create policy if you trust the website to allow the user to access it and let the user accept the risk of accessing those type of websites. Another is because the reason some of the website may not be, which is not very common, is that the proxies trust package were not updated. What is this trust package? This trust package contains browser trusted certificate authorities. This is updated in a proxy every 7 days by default. If the proxy is not able to get the update and there are new websites, the proxy may not have the content of the website certificate and public key that is distributed by the OCS. So with that, or the certificate, the update coming from the intermediate CAs, we may not be able to receive it from the proxy. So if that's so, if you have those websites that we don't have the CA that signs, the updated CAs that signs those sites, then you will have issue accessing those websites. But this is unlikely to happen because this is something that we require when we install the proxy. And the only reason why would this fail is because it could be that a security device in front of the proxy is configured to block traffic destined to the location, which is Symantec. Another potential issue that could happen is the cipher suite compatibility issue. Now, as long as you are using a new browser version, this would this type of issue may not happen often because most browsers, especially new ones, are updated with new cipher suites as well. We can see this commonly happening if the user is using an older version of the browser, and because of that, the server might require a version or a cipher that the browser do not support, so the connection will fail. And that is basically with regards to cipher suite compatibility issues. As long as you have an updated browser, you're pretty much safe with cipher issues. The proxy is also updating its own cipher via the trust package. And of course, with regards to traffic that is going through the port of the SSL 443, which is non-standard traffic. So the proxy will only expect to see web traffic for ports that are configured for HTTPS 443. If it sees other traffic besides the usual web traffic, the proxy will now deny it. Okay. So this is basically what happened. So connection is denied on a non-SSL port. And also we have the statistics that we can monitor. So this is what I mentioned earlier. You can run a CPU monitor to basically monitor if what is causing the CPU to go up. It's either due to SSL cryptography. Now, if that is the case, it will tell you that it is something to do with SSL. Now, SSL termination or SSL interception do not really translate to a high memory. Basically, it is using CPU. We have advanced statistics here for SSL /statistics, where you can see the proxy is in fact accepting connection, right, without any errors. Another one is the load for HTTPS. So you can go to statistics, traffic details, and take a look at the statistics. Okay, how much traffic you are receiving for HTTPS. So this is just shows you that you're receiving this much HTTPS, but it will not really tell you that it is a problem. Okay, so this is under SSL statistics. Now, basically, what you would want to pay attention here is that the total certificates emulated should be higher than the total certificate emulation failure. Okay, we have a formula to compute the certificate emulation change using this value, SP51 over SPS61 plus SPS61. And then we can get the percent of certificate emulation change. Okay, so basically that's it for HTTPS. So next I'm going to talk about troubleshooting performance related issues. So, and policy efficiency. Now, first of all, eventually what happens is your proxy may have plenty of policy. All right, so when the proxy has plenty of policy, it will actually cause degradation of the performance of the proxy. Maybe you started your proxy with 20 rules with several layers, and then 2-3 years later you have like 300 rules, and that actually would have some impact with regards to the performance of your proxy. So one way you can do is you can actually find out, or what you can do is you can trim or you can prune your policy by removing unused policy. So how do you find out which policies are not in use anymore? So basically we have this advanced URL in proxy. If you go again to policy, advanced URL, and then you notice this policy coverage statistics. If you click on this, it shows you all the policy that you have in CPL form, all right, and how many hits those policies are. So for example, as you can see here on the left, you can see values of 0 and some has values. This means to say that there is a number of hits for this specific rule. So here we have 7,000 hits, 38,000 hits for this policy, so on and so forth. That's what you can see here. All right? So this tells you that this policy is often used compared to other policies. Okay? So this is what you can do. Maybe, you know, you start to capture this. This is an advanced URL. You can capture this using a cron job and log into the proxy using read-only access to capture this. And save this every time, maybe once a day, for several months. And then after that, you can generate a graph of what policy is never been used for several months. Maybe you can capture this for about half a year and then find out what are those policies, rules, or layers that never been used. So if you can see that, you know, 6 months later, or maybe you want to be safe 1 year later, you notice that certain policies not been used anymore, then you can decide to remove it. Okay, that is why it is very important that whenever you create policy in Proxy, okay, part of your practice is make use of the comment. So for example, if you created this policy for some reason, okay, let's say this policy is for service request number 12345, okay? So you know that you added this policy because of this service request number. So the service request number would typically contain the requester. So where, from whom did this policy came from, the request of this policy came from. And then if you notice 1 year later, this policy is not being triggered anymore, then at least you know who to contact to and ask them whether they still need this policy. If not, you can remove this from your proxy. So policy coverage is one way of basically identifying that which policy is not being triggered anymore. Okay, now there are a few things to take note here. Whenever you reboot your proxy, the policy coverage will go down to 0. That is why you need to capture it first before you reboot it. And likewise, whenever you install policy, it will go back to 0, the policy coverage. So that is why it is important that before you install policy or before you reboot the proxy, you capture this value first. All right? And that is the policy coverage. Now, for policy optimization, there are a few things. So you prone the policy already, meaning to say you remove those policy that's not been used. If you're using CPL, there are some optimization that you can do, such as grouping them together or using subnet instead of individual IP address, because imagine you have 4 rules here compared to a single rule. All right? Or you can also implement a touch where, because there are these clients going to the same category, you can just put them in subnet and then create one policy. It saves you proxy policy. Okay? And likewise, it is also advisable to use layer guard. All right? So you know what a layer guard already? So a layer guard basically, if the source is not matching or destination is matching or any of the trigger is not matching under your guard, then that specific layer guard won't be evaluated. So it greatly improves performance of your proxy. Another one is if you are using the proxy as a ICAP, send traffic to ICAP server. Another CPL entry that you can use is cache delete on abandonment. So it is a CPL code, delete on abandonment. Basically what it does is it will tell your proxy to stop downloading the website because the user has closed the browser. Okay? So that is pretty much it. So we just left with these labs. Okay, so let's go ahead with this.